The views and opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Open Sky Radio. Please be advised. Hey everybody, welcome to
The Fire You Can't Put Out.
And you're like, what the hell is going on? How come Kevin is back? Am I listening to an old episode? No. This is actually the end of the year.
Yes.
It's at the end of 2013, and I think most of us are glad that 2013 is ending.
Yes.
And today is actually December 28th, Saturday. So, so hey, glad to talk to you. Actually, So we actually do talk off the mic, which is funny for me to say because I've been off the mic for a while. Yes. And but we do talk, and I know Melvin actually knows very well what's going on. There has been a lot of changes in my personal life and otherwise, so I'm not really capable of doing the show right now. And I think, if these guys, I actually do have cats. I think I mentioned that sometime before. And if these guys are not behaving, you can probably hear why I probably can't do that show too often anymore. But so there are a lot of changes. So right now I'm not able to do this weekly. But we have been getting really good responses from everybody for Melvin's solo thing. So that format is going to continue, but I'm thinking that if Melvin is okay with it, so I'm going to maybe from time to time we'll just do a short segment or I'll drop in, or if we can actually get Angela back, that would be insane, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, I promised that I would get one or both of them back on, and today we have Kevin with us. I told you, and before the end of the year.
Fine.
I probably mentioned it on like the last 3 or 4 shows. I'm going to get him on the mic, so it's very good to have you here, Kevin.
Yeah. Hey,
just like old times. We are a year old now. I want to mention that right up front. So this is a big, fat deal to me.
Right, unbelievable. Actually unbelievable that we have been doing this. Well,
no, hey,
Kevin,
me,
and then mostly you for a year.
We have been doing this for a year. This is still a collaborative effort, and it would not be happening without you.
Right. I think let's reminisce a little bit. I think the last couple of things that I remember is I was in Hong Kong when the last time that we were together on the show.
Yeah.
We were doing it from Hong Kong, and Edward Snowden was in Hong Kong with me.
Yes, he was.
Well, not with me. Hey, jeez.
Right.
I'm sure NSA is listening. He wasn't with me. But I still have mixed feeling about that. I think the last time when we talk about Edward Snowden, it is not a simple matter because he does, or he did, in terms of law and on paper, betray his country. He did give away secrets, that can affect national security. But on the other hand, go ahead.
He is, for me, he is one of my, if not my top news story for the year. And although there is obviously a concern with letting national secrets go, what Edward Snowden did, and he was recently validated when a judge ordered that, well, not necessarily that he was right, but what the NSA was doing was definitely wrong. And it only got onto the front pages because of Edward Snowden. And he's been leaking out more and more things, and it's finally, when Bush started this program, and it was the Bush administration, they said, well, we got attacked, you don't want to get attacked again, you gotta let us listen to your phone calls. And, people just kind of him and hawing about it, but as soon as Snowden came out and said it's happening, and here's some documents, but now Obama's doing it, of course it exploded. Whatever it takes. I don't think any president should have this kind of power. Right. And Snowden in my mind is pretty heroic, and he shut down his whole life in order to do this.
Right.
He's living in Russia, which I'm not real happy about because I don't particularly care for Russia right now for any number of reasons. Pussy Riot. The gay propaganda laws, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But he's out of the reach of the United States, and now the Obama administration has said, hey, we will let you come back and we will not arrest you and send you to prison if you quit releasing things. And sure. I don't even know that he's considering that.
Well, I mean, well, some of the rumors we've been hearing is, some of the information is on some kind of a safe lockbox or something. If something happened to, it's like a mafia movie. Something, God forbid, something happened to me. This information,
Yeah. Well, they're embarrassed. The Obama administration is absolutely embarrassed right now, and so Obama was at a press conference a couple of weeks ago, and they said, "Hey, you're listening to everybody's phone calls, Costa." And he goes, "No, we're not listening to actual phone calls. I don't really care what your boyfriend and girlfriends are talking about, blah blah blah. We're collecting this metadata." And he goes, "Hey, we're collecting it so you don't get attacked again." He goes, "Because you know what would happen if we got attacked? First thing people would do is come to me and say, 'Why aren't you listening to everyone's phone calls? How'd we get attacked?'"
Yeah.
It's damned if you do and damned if you don't.
I think, in terms of politics, I think it's hard. Sometimes it's hard for us to at least not think in a hypocritical kind of way.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm sure. Well, oh yeah, but people we like are in the White House right now, so it should be fine. No. I think you have to tune your mind into not thinking like that. This is at the end will be bad for everybody. It doesn't matter if there's a Democrat in the White House or a Republican, or heck, it doesn't matter if there's a Tea Party, whatever in the White House. Right. It's going to be, at the end, it's going to be bad for everybody.
Obama just hired somebody who used to be on the board of members for Walmart to work in his administration. Now, if you remember, him and his wife the first lady were very upfront when they first came in about how anti-Walmart they were because of the way they're treating their people. Right. But see, even he, unfortunately, and they say, well, you like who's in the White House? It's a Democrat. No, I'm going to take him apart when I see him doing bad things. And now he's working with the Walmart people, and that's a bad thing.
I mean, and I think, it's like, I think politics a lot of times is it's good, and it's just natural for it to be complicated.
Yes.
It's obviously we both voted for Obama.
Certainly.
And we are glad that he's in there. But I'm sure, if we are mature human beings, mature adults, of course there will be stuff that we don't like about his administration, right? Hey, heck, Nixon. I don't think Nixon is a very lovable person.
He's not.
But hey, his administration has a big hand in forming the EPA. So,
of course, his hand was forced in that, but even still, it was his administration that set that up. But hey, let's go over a few things.
Sure.
Year in review. I would like to mention now. I forgot. This has been a monster year for any number of reasons, and not the least of which was, and I was looking over some of the things that happened this past year, going through some of my old stories, the Boston bombing. That happened this year.
Right.
I remember. Was an absolutely amazing story.
I remember the brother, or one of the brother, was captured alive during one of our taping. Actually,
well, and he is they still have him in custody. We haven't heard anything about him since he got arrested.
Right.
Of course, the Zimmerman trial was this year, which just changed a whole lot of things, and he's been arrested 5 or 6 times.
This guy.
Since. Yes, this guy who has become an absolute hero to the conservative movement.
Right. It's just so obvious to me that this guy is not right. And really that begs the question, right? Well, this person it's obviously something's wrong with him, but yet he can walk around with a weapon.
Right.
Let's oh gosh. See, we're back to the gun control thing.
No, don't worry. We won't. Here. How about this? Let's do a spot of good news that came up this year. And this happened right at the beginning of the year. The Church of England dropped its prohibition on gay clergy in civil partnerships becoming bishops.
Wow.
As long as they remain celibate. That happened in January of this year. That was a big deal too. Manny Teo. I brought that up to you last night. I go, holy hell, that happened this year too.
Yeah. And of course, Obamacare, the website.
The ACA, absolutely. Yeah, the ACA, which rolled out officially, sign-up started in October, And then, of course, for the first 3 weeks, nobody was paying attention because the government was shut down.
Right.
The government hadn't shut down since, was it 96 or 98?
Right.
It's been a long time since it happened, and that actually happened. It's 17 years.
During the horrific Newt Gingrich years.
Yes, the Gingrich years.
Well, of course you can say, okay, wait a minute, you have all kinds. It really, one of these things that really pisses me off, to no end. I mean, seriously, it's an IT problem, which means it's fixable.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the criticism is right. You know, if Amazon or Google or whoever, it's capable of handling like billions and billions of hits, you know, why can't the government do that? Okay, well, that's one thing. But I think. Let me make one point.
Go ahead.
I think it's just crazy that the left or whoever on our end is letting the right kind of, they try to invalidate this whole policy because of an IT problem, basically,
right? Which
is nonsensical. And nobody on our side. Well, there has to be somebody, but I can't listen to everything. You know. It has to be somebody has to be like, hey, this is an IT problem. It's not the policy itself is not the problem. This is an IT problem. We'll fix it. But I mean, the Obama people kind of really dropped the ball on this one because
one of the things, obviously, is all of the red state governors that decided to not participate. That was one of the reasons that the website got absolutely overwhelmed because there were 30 states that opted out of it just because they don't like Obama.
Right.
Now, two things. People were freaking out saying, after healthcare.gov wasn't working, they go, gosh dang it, the government can't do anything. Wait a minute, that website was built by a private for-profit company.
Right.
Those are the guys you want in charge, and then they go, well, Obamacare itself is terrible. Once again, private for-profit companies run the whole thing.
Yeah, that's totally...
Once again, it's not the government again. Yeah, the government made some rules so that more people can participate, so that more people can get health care. I was listening to a gentleman, and I used the term loosely the other day, talking about the ACA. And he goes, hey, you can't give all of these people health care because eventually they're all going to want to go to the doctor.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Well,
what the hell's wrong with that?
That's just nonsensical. I mean, it's just some of the argument coming out from the other side. Just
everyone to go to the doctor. There'll be too many people at the doctor, and everyone's going to get better. Well, Jesus, yeah. and then people might live. God, that would suck.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so obvious to, and I'm sure we talk about this, but and everybody's talking about it. It's so obvious that they are against everything that Obama is proposing or his people are doing, simply because Obama is black.
Obama. Right. Well, right. Part of it, there's definitely an element of racism, but I believe that there are some people that are just party-minded. They're just saying, the person in there doesn't belong to our party, and if he has any success, our party won't get back in, so we can't let him have any success. Yeah. And I think, even though there is some racism, I believe the largest reason is it's just party v. party. They go, we can't help, the American people will suffer. Fine, but we can't let him have success because our party won't get back in if he has success.
Yeah, I would disagree with you a little bit there.
Oh, yeah, and that's
because
okay. No, go ahead.
I think partisanship is secondary. I think race really is. I can actually feel it. I mean, race is partisanship. It doesn't go that far in terms of just being against being against the sake.
Right.
A lot of these people are just, oh yeah, he can't do anything right. You know. Well, anyway, I think, obviously a lot happened this year.
Couple of things. Obviously, brokered a deal with Syria to get them to break down their chemical weapons.
Right.
Brokered a deal with Iran, because we've been talking about attacking Iran for years. And obviously, the Congress is trying to blow up that deal right now by putting more sanctions on Iran because they want war. So we'll have to see what happens with that in the next year. But I thought this was interesting. I looked at Google Trends yesterday, and the number one most searched car on Google last year was the Tesla. Which is an electric, yeah. Well, so I think in the next year, we are going to see a lot more in the way of electric cars. They've come a long way with these things. The biggest complaint people have with them, first of all, is the battery, and they've been able to extend the life on them. And then, of course, the way that they handle, the way that they drive. And now there's more than a few people that they're really expensive. Right. I think a new Tesla's $50,000, and that's just a basic car. So obviously the price point has to come down. But I think this may be the year we finally start seeing more and more of our actual passenger vehicles, at least, moving towards electric and moving away from gasoline. I don't know that we'll ever be able to get our planes or our big rigs off of oil, but it'd be nice to at least get our passenger cars off of oil.
Right. So, yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this year, hopefully, it's better than last, and in so many things. And I think
yes.
You know, well, one more thing I want to say.
Yes, go ahead.
It's, you know, the weather is going crazy, right? I don't know if everybody's paying attention to the weather. And then, of course, the weather with the global warming or climate change deniers are coming. Say, it's frozen everywhere. I'm like, are you going back to that again? It's frozen because weather is abnormal. You know,
right?
It's like New York City is warm, and then it's frozen everywhere. Anyway. We can go on and on, but you know what? Let's wrap up this historical segment.
Yes.
And say that. By the way, there's one other thing that I want to tell everybody that amongst the billions of changes coming up, there will be some changes with Open Sky Radio, and right now it's a little bit uncertain which direction it is going. So stay tuned on our Facebook page to see if I have updates. We'll certainly post it as soon as possible. But it looks like Open Sky Radio, unfortunately, is coming to a close. Yeah. And word I'm getting is there will be other stations set up. So hopefully we will be on one of those new stations. But it's a little bit unclear right now. But, so I don't know what to tell on that front. But eventually, we are, of course, Melvin and I are talking about this, and we might develop our own channel eventually. So, just stay tuned and see what's going on, okay? So well, that's it for now, I guess. And you'll hear music coming up, and then we'll go back to Melvin's solo show.
All right.
Until next time, be well, everybody, and Happy New Year. All right.
Happy New Year in a minute, everybody.
All right.
Good day, everybody. I am back. Welcome to the fire you can't put out. I want to thank Kevin for doing a segment with me today. It was nice to bring him back on. A little blast from the past. My old buddy there. Today we are taping episode 49. That's crazy. I can't believe I've done 49 of these things by now. But I'm pretty excited to do it. We are officially 1 year old now, and I want to thank everybody out there for their support. Now, Kevin just informed everybody about what's going on with Open Sky Radio. So after the new year begins here in a couple of days, we're not entirely sure what's going to happen at that point. It looks like we might be down for a couple of weeks. Now, I'm the type of person that works a lot better on a schedule. So I myself will continue to record a show once every week, and then, of course, when they come out, probably at the end of January, they'll just come out as what we like to call lost episodes. But I work better on a schedule, and I do this no matter what. Whether there's news, whether there's not news, whether I feel like it, whether I don't feel like it, this kind of thing really just comes naturally to me. So I'm going to continue to put these shows out even if they aren't necessarily hitting your computers or your eardrums. So with that said, let's get started. Heading into 2014, the discussion at the end of this year so far has been what an amazing year 2013 has been with respect to news. Of course, we are in the 5th year of the Obama presidency, and as the 5th year goes with any presidency, it hasn't been real good for him. It's been really shaky, and the government got shut down this year, which, even though he has no control over, he got a whole lot of the blame for. But, with that said, 5th years are almost always terrible. You may remember during Bush's 5th year, we had Hurricane Katrina, which was bad in and of itself, but then the response from him and his administration was to do nothing, and it was at that point that his presidency really took a serious turn. Of course, ignoring what happened during Hurricane Katrina, not helping the people of Louisiana and the Gulf Coast, was his way of saying, hey, look, the government can't do anything. But that's not what happened. The American people turned and looked at him and his administration and said, you can't do anything. So the 5th year, Obamacare rolled out. We had a lot of things. The Boston bombers happened this year. We got a new pope this year who's changing the church the world over. And wages and inequality finally became a big thing. Now, the pope played no small role in that for certain, because in the statement that he released about a month ago, he mentioned inequality. He mentioned unfettered capitalism. We had fast food workers marching in the streets, right? Protesting missing work when they can't afford to miss work. But they did it for the larger good because they believe that they deserve a living wage. And I agree. And then the fight for 10. Well, Obama's trying to call it the fight for 9, which is the minimum $9 an hour. And there's a bill going through Congress that wants to raise it to 10.10. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, there is SeaTac, Washington, which is just a small town. It's the city between Seattle and Tacoma. It's the airport. It's the airport in Western Washington. They raised their minimum wage to $15 an hour. I think that should be the bare minimum everywhere. Of course, people would call me a socialist for that, but anytime somebody's working for a wage and working full time, I don't think they should have to live in poverty. If that makes me a socialist, then somebody needs a dictionary, and it's not this reporter. 13 states will be raising their minimum wage this year at the turn of the year, and so let's begin there. Of course, Congress is considering legislation to raise it all over the place. And we talked about SeaTac. And so most states have tied their minimum wage. They've indexed it to inflation. And that's Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Missouri, Montana, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, Washington State. Now, this is the state where essentially where I live. I kind of live in between two states right now, Washington and Oregon. And Washington has the highest minimum wage. The state has. It's the highest minimum wage of all the states. Of course, SeaTac absolutely takes the cake on this one. So the bill that's in front of Congress right now was the minimum wage bill. It's Tom Harkin from Iowa and George Miller from California, both Democrats. It would bring the minimum wage up to 10.10 and index it with inflation. The Republicans, of course, absolutely hate this idea because anytime the working class might get out of poverty and might become politically active and might turn out to vote for Democrats, they can't have that. But what do the American people think about raising the minimum wage? The idea tends to poll extremely well, including among Republicans who do not like their Republican members of Congress. Most polls show that around 2/3 of respondents support raising the federal minimum wage. In a recent Washington Post ABC poll, half of Republicans who responded said it should be raised because here's the thing. The minimum wage affects everybody, but it also helps everybody. You can say, well, I'm a Republican and I don't want the minimum wage to be raised because it's going to hurt business owners and they won't be able to afford all their yachts and la-da-da-da-da. But the minimum wage affects you too because it doesn't just hit Democrats. It hits anybody who works at a low-skilled job. And when it's raised, it, of course, helps everybody. just to give you an idea of what some of these minimum wages are being raised to. In Arizona, it's being raised from $7.80 to $7.90. Colorado, $7.78 to $8. Missouri, $7.35 to $7.50. New York, $7.25 to $8 an hour. Now, New York, this as a state, is probably the most expensive one to live in. I think it should be higher there, certainly, but at least it's being raised. San Jose, California, from $10 to $10.15 an hour. San Francisco, $10.55 to $10.74. Actually, I digress. San Francisco might be vastly more expensive. And, of course, SeaTac is going from $9.19 to $15 an hour. So, December 28th, in the bill that Washington's Patty Murray and Wisconsin's Paul Ryan came up with, the budget bill, the 2-year budget bill, of course, the Democrats, one of the things they had to give up was helping the long-term unemployed. The Republicans said, absolutely not. You will not help the long-term unemployed, because if you do, we will not support the budget bill. So, as of today, December 28th, 1.1 million people are losing their unemployment. The Republicans are calling this a jobs bill, essentially. They said if you take away their unemployment, they will get jobs. Because what you're doing by giving them unemployment is you're enabling them to not work, which is obviously ridiculous. The American people are industrious, and the numbers show it. Our productivity goes up every single year. The only thing that doesn't seem to go up every year is our wages. Corporate profits are going up. CEO pay is going up. Productivity. Yeah, we're producing more. The American people are hard workers. You say, well, the long-term unemployed, they just don't want to work. And it's not true. 2014 is an election year. So that's what we're looking at. Every single member of the House and 1/3 of the Senate is up. Obviously, my hope is that Democrats, but not just Democrats, more progressive Democrats will take over this year. And John Boehner should lose the gavel, hands down. I would like to see the Republicans, I'd like to see the Democrats actually maintain control of the Senate. But Obamacare had a tough rollout. It had a really tough rollout. And there are some polls suggesting that some Democrats might have to pay for that. But there are much stronger polls that show that Republicans will pay for not helping the long-term unemployed. Let me, real quick, just to give you an idea, I collected unemployment one time after I was laid off after the economic slump that happened in 2001. And I went from making, I believe I was making right around $1,800 a month, right? I was a single man, so that was a pretty fair wage for me. After I lost my job and had to collect unemployment, I was grossing $255 a week. Okay, fine. But of course, you pay taxes on unemployment benefits. I don't know if a lot of people realize that. So yeah, I was bringing in less than $1,000. I went from $1,800 to bringing in less than $1,000, which I was a single man at that point, so I was doing okay. But then as soon as I went to school and tried to better myself, my unemployment was pulled. It's really not easy to get unemployment. So most people collecting unemployment right now are collecting roughly right around $1,100 a month. And they're just losing that now. Because the Republicans think they should. I think the Republicans are doing it because they think it will reflect badly upon the president. And of course it will. Because a lot of people don't understand how their government works. But it was Congress, the Republicans in Congress, that said that they didn't want that. So, homes. People are going to begin losing their homes, their apartments, the food they buy. They're not going to be able to take care of their children. Then they're going to try to go on public assistance. And the Republicans have cut that as well. Nothing, no safety net, no lifeline. So, it is my hope that the Republicans will pay for it in the upcoming year. So, This comes to us from Ashley Allman over at the Huffington Post. In a PPP poll, that's the public policy polling, they surveyed voters in 4 key congressional districts as well as people in John Boehner's district to gauge support for extending unemployment benefits. The poll, which was funded by Americans for Change, showed that voters across party lines were overwhelmingly in favor of extending the benefits, with 63 to 68% of voters in each district expressing support for preserving jobless benefits. Now, 63 to 68, whichever one you believe, in Congress that would be a veto-proof majority. Okay, that would be considered a supermajority. If a president or any member of the House or Senate won by those kind of numbers, we would call it an absolute all-out landslide. Voters in the 4 districts said they were less likely to vote for the Republican incumbent in 2014 by at least a 9-point margin, were he to vote to cut off extended unemployment benefits. Congress is obviously off until after the new year, but Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has promised to bring the extension to a vote no later than January 7th, 2014. So yeah, you're going to have to hold on for a couple of weeks and see if they can actually get it through. And it potentially might get through because, yeah, we are in an election year now. Moderate Republicans urged John Boehner and House Majority Leader Eric Cantor to rescue jobless benefits for the long-term unemployed earlier in December, saying the issue was important to many American families, but Boehner would only consider the proposal if cuts were made elsewhere. Jeremy Funk, Communication Director for Americans United for Change, said all these struggling Americans got from the GOP for Christmas was a "Get Employed Soon" card. They've lit an unbelievable fire underneath a lot of people who are absolutely undeserving. With all of the trade deals that we have going on right now, the trade deals that are in place, NAFTA and GATT and all that, and then of course the most recent trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, all of these jobs are being sent overseas right now. And Americans are having a hard time finding work. And so not only have they shipped your job overseas, now they've taken away your safety net and said, go get a job. Perhaps you can move to China or India, where your job is. The focus is going to be this coming year on what does the government mean to you? What should the government be doing and what should the government not be doing? This comes to us from Florida. South Florida Democrats fired a stinging rebuke at Governor Rick Scott Thursday, holding him responsible for the deaths of 40 children who were known to state child welfare workers when they died during the first half of 2013. Representative Perry Thurston's letter blasted Scott for laying off hundreds of employees with the Florida Department of Children and Families and for recommending budget cuts to the agency. Just a couple of stories here from the state of Florida. 2-year-old Ezra Raphael was whipped to death with a belt several months after being returned to his mother, a North Miami Beach prostitute and drug user. According to the Miami Herald report, though the caseworker had labeled the boy at high risk, she closed the case and did not prevent the boy from being taken from his caregiver's home by his mother. 3-year-old Michael McMullen died at his grandmother's house after being wrapped and tied in a blanket during a bizarre and cruel punishment. Child welfare workers had placed him in the home, according to the Herald, then left him and his siblings there despite red flag reports that the children were sleeping in animal crates, had bruises, and were living in the presence of their abusive stepfather and were possibly being drugged. 12-year-old Tamia Adon, a disabled autistic Lauderhill girl, lost half her body weight but remained in the care of her aunt before dying in the woman's roach-filled home of suspected starvation. Her 50-pound body covered in sores, including one so deep a bone was exposed. The Herald reports a private agency paid by the state failed to complete a background check and paid little attention to the case despite pleas for help from medical professionals and from the aunt herself. The cluster of deaths came after Scott said that budget cuts to the DCF were necessary for him to, here it is, grow jobs in Florida. We have to cut social services to grow jobs in Florida. That's always the talk. And that the agency would have to do with less. The deaths included cases of asphyxia, drowning, physical abuse, shootings, and a drug overdose. No safety plans were developed in a number of these cases. So the idea is cut government and everything will be better. But what we learned this year from the government shutdown is things don't get better. They get worse. And then they're exacerbated by inaction. And all of these children, I'm going to make the statement, all of these children, Governor Rick Scott of Florida, yeah, their bodies are on your hands. But you saved a little bit of money. And this is the question people are going to have to ask themselves in the coming year. It's amazing to me that Florida is a red state. I guess they call it a purple state. But there's a lot of wealthy people there. And they generally tend to lean more to the right. But yeah, we need social services. As much as people don't like the idea, we need social services. It's how we protect children. There's a movement out there, the anti-abortion movement. There's a movement to, you'll have to forgive me, I'm obviously fighting some sort of a head cold here, but I record no matter what. So there's a movement to make sure that every child in America is born, right? They stand in front of Planned Parenthood with their graphic signs and all the rest, and they shout slogans and they shout down women who are walking in and out of the clinic who are probably just there getting a pap smear or whatever else. And every child deserves it. Every child should get to live. Every child deserves a chance. Every child is loved. God knew you when you were in the womb and all the rest. But once those children are born, bugger off. You better get a job. Yeah, we don't care. Pro-birth? Anti-child? So, I'd like to see Florida turn red. Excuse me, not red. I'm going to leave that in. Blue! I'd like to see them turn blue. Georgia's turning blue. That's, I know, it sounds like a strange statement, but it is. It's true. Georgia has, follow me, the fastest growing black and Latino population in the country. So, how fast can the populace be galvanized to change the political face of the state? You may have heard about all the voting laws that are being put into place right now. Of course, the idea with the voting laws is the demographics are changing. And the Republicans, because their message, by and large, only appeals, or almost only appeals, to white, angry males. And yes, I'm saying that, white, angry males. Okay? I believe a lot of people's anger comes from fear. And anybody who believes that anyone needs to be armed to the teeth all the time, especially to protect themselves from their government, yeah, you are ruled by fear and you are angry, and it's completely misdirected. So all these voting laws that they're implementing in all these states right now are in response to changing demographics. Latinos, African Americans, women. This was a huge year for women who have just really turned hard against the Republican Party. But with all these minorities becoming majorities, with non-white baby births outpacing white baby births this year, it's pretty clear that the Republicans are going to have to change their message. They're going to have to stop embracing the racists. Now, not everyone in the Republican Party is racist, but they're not in the Democratic Party. The racists run to the teabaggers. They run to the Republicans. And the Republican Party as a whole is going to have to stop embracing them. Because you will not win elections that way. You can buy them and steal them all you want, but that's only going to last for so long. So, back to Georgia, becoming blue. Let's talk about Michelle Nunn, who is running for the U.S. Senate seat being vacated by Republican Saxby Chambliss. Nunn is the daughter of former U.S. Senator Sam Nunn, and Sam represented Georgia for 24 years. While Michelle Nunn has never before held elective office, she is already a proven fundraiser. In the first 10 weeks of her campaign, she raised $1.7 million. A number of ominous signs have emerged for the GOP in this race. In November, the conservative paper Savannah Morning News published a positive editorial about Nunn, and it read in part, Miss Nunn appears to be cut from the JFK kind of Democratic cloth. Ask what you can do for your country and your community and on your time and with your own dime compared to many other members in her party of her party in Congress. She is a refreshing voice. A whole gaggle of Republicans who are competing for the Republican nomination for the seat. There's a ton of them. On the one hand, these are the Republicans we're talking about now, is Representative Paul Brown, who says evolution, embryology, and the Big Bang Theory are lies, this is a quote, lies straight from the pit of hell, unquote. Of course, another is Representative Phil Gingrey. Gingrey is an obstetrician gynecologist who recently kind of sort of backed Todd Aiken's infamous declaration that women don't get pregnant from a legitimate rape. These are the Republicans. We're going to talk about science here in a little bit, just to stick with me. Jimmy Carter's grandson, Jason Carter, is already a state senator, but he is currently running to be the governor in Georgia. And their numbers look good. Their numbers look really good. So it appears that the Democrats have a good chance of taking over Georgia. They just took back Virginia in a huge way. All 4 state offices were taken this year in Virginia by Democrats, completely flipped from Republicans. And that's good. The Republicans, the Democrats, in order to keep it up, are really going to have to continue to work on the Obamacare front, because that's the one thing that could become a strength or a weakness for the Democrats. Now, we just got some good news late today that Obamacare signups have now surpassed 1 million. I forget what the original goal was, but they passed over 1 million. They wanted at least over 1 million by the end of the year, and they have made that goal. So things are looking good, but they need to keep working on Obamacare to make sure that people continue to get signed up, continue to get help. The navigators need to keep working with the people, and then of course the Republicans. You guys just keep doing what you're doing, because I love watching you guys lose elections. So I want to get to some good news right now. Some really good news right now. The Obama administration, a while back, set a goal of ending homelessness among veterans by 2015. But Phoenix has already hit that mark. You may or may not have heard about this. This is monster, mega, wonderful news to me, and I was so glad to read this. Phoenix announced last week that it has eradicated chronic veteran homelessness, making it the first city in the country to do so after it housed an additional 56 veterans this past Wednesday. Monster, mega, awesome. Okay, so 3 years ago, city officials identified 222 homeless veterans living in Phoenix. Using both state and federal funds, the city had successfully housed the last of the veterans who were living without homes. They did so through an innovative idea known as Housing First, providing somewhere to live for the homeless individuals without first requiring that they be sober or drug-free. The thinking there, of course, is that homeless individuals with drug or alcohol problems will be far more capable to address these issues if they first have a stable place to live. Housing First works best when it is coupled, as it was in Phoenix, with supportive services like job training and health care. Did you get that? In 2009, President Obama and the Veterans Affairs Secretary Eric K. Shinseki announced an initiative to combat veteran homelessness with the goal of housing every veteran in the country by 2015. The most recent nationwide homeless count found that 57,849 homeless veterans in the United States, fully 12% of the total adult homeless population. Though the number is still unbearably high, it represents a 24% decline over the past number of years. So the Obama administration is working on it. Now, you may remember a rift from when, who was it, was running for president? Oh, I forget his name now. John Edwards. John Edwards was running for president. He mentioned there were the homeless population among veterans. And Bill O'Reilly of Fox News took to the TV machine and said, because John had said that there are so many homeless veterans living under bridges. And O'Reilly came out and said he thought that John Edwards' brain was living under a bridge and that what he said was absolutely not true. And of course it is true. The freeway on-ramps and off-ramps here in my fair city Definitely during the working hours, the part of the day, it's all day, but certainly when everyone is headed home from work, all the on-ramps and off-ramps have almost always somebody holding up a sign saying, I'm a vet, I'm hungry, I need money, and all the rest. And they're everywhere. So it's pretty clear. Now, some of them might be lying because, of course, Americans love to wax ecstatic about how much they love the veterans. But when it comes to helping them, well, of course, the Republicans in Congress just cut off their food stamps and just cut off housing assistance. So, good on you, Phoenix. It's a model that the rest of us could definitely follow. This kind of reminds me of the sort of the child thing where we're so involved in the beginning, right? We want everyone to sign up for the United States military, and there are all kinds of pushes to get people to sign up. And then, of course, when it comes time to help those veterans after they get injured, or after they leave the service or any of the rest, it's bye-bye, who cares? Yeah, we're done with you. And I compared it to the child thing because, like I said, there's a movement to make sure every child is born, but not that every child is taken care of. I want to get back to labor for a little bit. One of my daughters came to me the other day because they were curious. They were curious a little while back, a few months back, about where their clothes were made. This is an honest thing, They figured they were made here in America, and I had to tell them, no, they're not, actually, and they're made in low-wage countries, by and large by slaves. And one of my daughters went to school and told one of their friends that. And then the friend, and I quote, said, we shop at Walmart. Walmart's clothes aren't made by slaves. And my daughter came home and told me about this, and I said, actually, Walmart is the worst of the worst. I mean, they're all bad. Shopko, Fred Meyer, Ross, any of them. They all make their clothes outside of the country. And it's not so that they can sell them to us cheaper, because they most certainly don't. It is so they can fatten their bottom line while exploiting people in a country, in countries where those governments are absolutely more than willing to exploit their people. Police charged the owners of a Bangladeshi garment factory and 11 employees with culpable homicide Sunday for alleged negligence, leading to the death of 112 workers in a raging fire that engulfed the factory this year. You may remember the Bangladesh factory fire. Over 100 people just cooked to their death. It was the first time the Bangladeshi authorities had sought to prosecute factory owners in the world's second largest garment industry. A series of recent deadly disasters, including the November 24, 2012 fire and factory collapse in April that killed more than 1,100 workers, exposed how harsh and often unsafe conditions can be for many of the country's 4 million workers providing clothing to major Western retailers. Pause for a minute. Just reach back into your shirt, back of your pants, back of your drawers, anything that's got a tag. Look and see where it's made. 999 times out of 1,000, it's not going to say America. Public prosecutor Anwar Kabi Babul, say that 5 times fast, and the 13 people charged Sunday could face life in prison if convicted of failing to ensure safety at the sprawling Tazreen Fashions Limited factory, located outside of Dhaka, which is the capital. The factory, which produced clothing for global brands including Walmart, there it is, had no emergency fire exits, while its location in a narrow alley meant firefighters were unable to reach the flames. The managers and security guards misguided the workers by saying that it was nothing. It's just a regular fire drill, and the fire broke out. So the workers, of course, went back to work after the fire alarm went off, but they got trapped as the managers locked the gates. Bangladesh is the world's second largest garment manufacturer after China, and it earns more than $20 billion a year from exports, mainly to the United States and Europe. So it goes like this. In America, we say there are too many regulations. There's too many laws. There's too many restrictions. We can't do this, because it crushes business. Actually, fire escapes help. Good working conditions help. Okay, it's not burdensome regulation. It stops people from dying. Okay, and the clothes, and then so when the argument is made that we need to compete on global terms with all the rest of the world, and no, we don't. In countries where there are no protections for workers, where they don't make a good wage, okay, where they can die making clothes for Westerners. That's essentially the argument that's being made here in America, is that if we just had that kind of a model, that kind of a thing going on here, how much better America would be. We don't want to compete on a global market. We should bring all those jobs home. There would be more than enough work for everybody here in America if we brought those jobs home. And our clothes would remain the same price. I'm sorry, I don't buy the argument that they would get more expensive because you pay somebody a living wage. They wouldn't, okay? But what would happen is the CEOs, well, they might take home $3 million that year instead of $4 million. I mean, it would come back in that way. But the CEOs, I don't think you really need to make more than $1 million a year. Are you really that great? I would submit to you that they are not. Energy in the new year is going to be a big thing. I was checking out the Google trends for the most recent year, and the number one most researched car this past year was the Tesla. Now, I mentioned that in a segment with Kevin. And I mention it again because it's a big deal to me because it shows that people are getting interested in finally getting off of oil. Of course, the Keystone XL pipeline is having an awful lot of problems. The Obama administration has still not said that they're going to sign off on it. So it goes like this. A former British petroleum geologist has warned that the age of cheap oil is long gone, bringing with it the danger of continuous recession and increased risk of conflict and hunger. We've reached peak oil. A lot of people don't realize it, but we have. So, at a lecture on geohazards earlier this month at University College London, Dr. Richard G. Miller, who worked for BP from 85 to 2008, said that official data from the International Energy Agency, U.S. Energy Information Administration, and the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, among other sources, showed that conventional oil had most likely peaked around 2008. Dr. Miller critiqued the official industry line that global reserves will last 53 years at current rates of consumption, pointing out that peaking is the result of declining production rates, not declining reserves. Despite new discoveries and increasing reliance on unconventional oil and gas, 37 countries are already post-peak, and global oil production is declining at about 4.1% per year, or 3.5 million barrels per day per year. Quote, we need new production equal to a new Saudi Arabia every 3 to 4 years to maintain and grow supply. New discoveries have not matched consumption since 1986. We're drawing down our reserves. Even though reserves are apparently climbing every year, reserves are growing due to better technology in oil fields, raising the amount that we can recover. But production is still falling at 4.1% per annum. Tar sands will fare similarly. Now, you've heard a lot about tar sands oil, and this is the stuff that would be carried from Canada if the Keystone XL ever got built, okay? So, they conclude, the Canadian oil sands will deliver only about 5 million barrels per day by 2030, which represents less than 6% of the IEA production for all liquids production by that date. The final peak is going to be decided by price. How much can we afford to pay? Dr. Miller said in an interview, if we can afford to pay $150 per barrel, we could certainly produce more given a few years of lead time for new developments, but it would break economies. Quote, we're like a cage of lab rats that have eaten all the cornflakes and discovered that you can eat the cardboard packages too. It's an old energy. And we've used it for well over 100 years. And it's antiquated. And we've got to find a way out of it. We're probably going to have our hand forced, which is unfortunate because we should be able to be proactive as Americans and just say that we want better. We just want better. We want renewable energy. We don't want to pump or not as many cancer-producing agents into the air. But of course, this, like so many of our debates, is shaped not by what you and I believe in our minds, after spending extensive time thinking about it, the narrative that most of us are arguing about with respect to this is what we're being told to argue about. Just turn on any of the Sunday shows, Meet the Press, Fox News Sunday, any of them, and you'll see a lot of ads for oil running during those shows, which is not to inspire you to run out and buy some oil. They're PR campaigns. And do the oil company ads talk about how oil is great and oil is this and oil is that? No. A lot of the ads talk about how they're researching alternative energies and all the rest. Right? How they're putting so much into solar and trying to lessen our blah, blah, blah. PR. And then that, along with the apologists for Koch Industries and Exxon and BP and all the rest, completely changed the conversation. And then it becomes pro-oil, pro-America, pro-business versus anti. And that's not the way it should be, because we're obviously all affected by how this works out. And how it shakes out, it's ultimately gonna affect us all, no matter what side you are on this debate. The end result is gonna be the same for everybody. There's just those of us that recognize it now, and those of us that will have to recognize it later. So, the new year, let's talk teabaggers. And this might be the year that they have to go away. I, for one, would love to see that. So, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this particular story, but I couldn't help myself. So, I'm going to bring it to you. A 46-year-old Michigan member of the Tea Party Patriots was named Tuesday in a criminal complaint on charges of distributing and receiving illicit photos of children, according to the Smoking Gun. Brian Schwenke is accused of using the email account hornypastor@outlook.com to send and receive hundreds of provocative images of underage children. TSG detailed how as recently as last week, Schwenke was ranting on his Facebook page about President Barack Obama's behavior during a portion of the funeral for South African President, recently passed, Nelson Mandela. Quote, "What a classy president we have. His wife has to sit between him and make little Barry behave." He's throwing stones, obviously. Schwenke's profile, which has now been either deleted or made private, proclaimed that the U.S. was founded on a Christian foundation and that the progressive atheist left is running us into the ground to create a socialist country that will fall like all of the others. Yeah. You hear those? Those are crickets, okay? In spite of his straight-laced conservative public persona, however, Schwenke was posing online as a pastor and youth minister. In the persona of Horny Pastor, Schwenke claimed to have been a youth minister for 20 years, telling one correspondent, "With a pool at my house, I find lots of chances to counsel the girls." He was netted by Australian undercover police conducting an online sting. The Australian authorities reported Schwenke to the U.S. officials who raided his home in August. He was in possession of a vast trove of illegal images, according to court documents. Nearly every email in the Horny Pastor account contained images and accounts of child exploitation and abuse. Now, I'm not saying that all teabaggers are child molesters, because they're obviously not. That's one of those things that doesn't really fall along political lines. But I see so much of this with the Tea Party, how they're out there and they're so upstanding and all the rest. And yes, we're a Christian nation, and damn the atheists and damn the liberals, and then they do things like this. Glennis Racine, a New Mexico County Tea Party leader, has set off a controversy by accusing blacks of bitching and moaning about how the world owes them a living after slavery, making dubious claims that white Irish slaves were treated worse than any other race in the United States. Remember, white people have it much harder. Delegitimizing the historical complaints of racism made by African Americans seems to be a recurring theme with the Tea Party. Quote, "In an apparent attempt to contribute to our modern understanding of American history, the Tea Party leader reminds us that early American history included African and non-African people alike," wrote the group, "but their quest for facts includes their own assertion that all African Americans are bitching and moaning about how the world owes them a living. Glynis is exactly the type of fear-mongering leader Fox News and the conservative movement push to the front of their movement, said Patrick Davis of Progress Now, New Mexico. They shouldn't be surprised that they are having a hard time recruiting blacks, Hispanics, or reasonable people of any color to their side. After the backlash, Racine defended herself, saying it was time for blacks to move on from slavery. Those 400 years of history of getting whipped, forget about it. It's a new day. When the facts don't fit your narrative, just make them fit your narrative. If you've got to pry them in there with a crowbar, make them fit your narrative. Okay? So, on that note, they're rewriting the Bible. Yeah, no, you heard me right. They're rewriting the Bible. What we've learned, especially, or what's been a finer point has been put on recently with Pope Francis, is that Jesus, well, I'm going to say, he was a liberal, a long-haired Jewish peacenik. He was a liberal. Hungry, help the poor, help the homeless. The conservatives love Jesus, but they love their idea of Jesus a lot more and less about Jesus himself. So, follow me. There are currently more than 80 versions of the Christian Bible in print in the United States, and all sects have their own interpretations and variances on original text. But ConservativePedia.com, a right-wing group founded by Andy Schlafly, who is the son of anti-feminist Phyllis Schlafly, thinks the Bibles you get now are too liberal. They don't capture the true spirit of Christ. Alternate reports Schlafly and Conservapedia have asked the best of the public to help rewriting the original text of the Bible and rewording the Bible. With what this group of wingnuts really wants is to rewrite the Bible or omit passages altogether. For example, the passage, "He who is without sin, let him cast the first stone." That's from John. Well, that's far too liberal for Conservapedia. It hasn't been rewritten. It's been removed. Oh, okay, so "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Yeah, that one's gone too. It's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Well, they might just change rich to fully fed and entertained. "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth," has been altered to "Blessed are the God-fearing." When Jesus greets his disciples, "Peace be with you," that has been changed to "Peace of mind be with you." Because you can't have peace. I mean, that'd mean no war. Jesus was a total warmonger. Likewise, where Jesus says, "For God sent his Son into the world to condemn the world," not to condemn the world, but to save it, from John, Conservapedia changes "world" to "mankind." So it's clear that the Christian Savior isn't advocating environmentalism here. Finally, when Jesus admonishes hypocrites to cast out first the beam of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to pull out the mote that is in my brother's eye, the Conservative Bible replaces the word hypocrite with deceiver, since hypocrite is often misused politically against Christians. Changing it to fit your narrative. It's led, obviously, to massive amounts of confusion. And that confusion has led a lot of people to stop believing what are actual fact. So I'm going to do this story, and then I'm just going to do a final thought for the year. I had a ton of stories to get to today, but of course I ran a little long-winded. I want to thank you for sticking with me, though. The last push of the year, last story of the year, I mean, it's been a good year. I've really enjoyed doing this, and I've really enjoyed putting this information out there. So real quick, in a new HuffPost YouGov poll, only 36% of Americans reporting having a lot of trust in the information that they get from scientists that is accurate and reliable. 51% said they trust that information only a little. Another 6% said that they don't trust it at all. Science journalists fared even worse in the poll. Only 12% of respondents said they had a lot of trust in journalists to get the facts right up in the stories about their scientific studies. 57% said they have a little bit of trust, while 26% said they don't trust journalists at all to accurately report on scientific studies. What's more, here's where we're getting to the meat of this. Many Americans worry that the results of scientific studies are sometimes tainted by political ideology or by pressure from the study's corporate sponsors. A whopping 78% of Americans think that information reported in scientific studies is often 34% or sometimes 44% influenced by political ideology, compared to only 18% who said it happens rarely, 15%, or never who say it happens, 3%. Similarly, 82% said that they think scientific findings are often 43% or sometimes 39% influenced by the companies or organizations sponsoring them. Republicans in the new poll, no surprise, were most likely to say that they have only a little bit of trust in scientists to give accurate and reliable information, and most likely to say that they think scientific findings may be tainted by political ideology, possibly reflecting distrust in scientists over topics such as evolution and climate change. Politics is what it is, and to some degree kind of has always been. But with the changing demographics now, obviously my hope for the new year is that we will start to see a change in our people. With respect to wages, so many of us are taking sides against each other, even though we all benefit from it. With respect to religion, so many of us are taking sides against each other, when I really think that we might disagree on the means but not the ends. I think that we all ultimately want the same thing. I think we all want clean air. I think we all want safety. I think we all want security. Even though a lot of folks won't admit it, I think most people really do like the idea of peace. But obviously, so we don't agree on the ends. But we obviously disagree so much on the means. We disagree so much on how we get there. This last year has made us reflect upon what the government is, what it means to us, what it should do in our lives, and what it should not do in our lives. And that debate has gotten as heavy as it's ever been. So in the next year, I think we'll have a major choice to make. And of course, that's going to happen in the middle of Obama's presidency. He's got 3 years left. Obviously, I want Obamacare to keep going forward in whatever form it goes forward in, because I think that everybody deserves at least access to health care. If you get access and you decide not to go to the doctor, fine. Welcome to America, the freest country in the world, and we really are. I was reading about the members of Pussy Riot who just spent time in prison for performing a song in a church that was against Putin. And then, of course, we reported on a man last week who's going to prison because he was standing on the corner with a sign that was showing support for the gay community. That's what it looks like when a country is not free, when a leader is oppressive, and when you do not have free speech. People freaking out at Phil Robertson over being a homophobe, that's not suppressing his free speech. That's responding to his asinine and antiquated ideas. So in the next year, we're going to see demographic changes. We're going to see government changes. We're going to see something happen with wages. We're going to see something happen with healthcare. We're going to see something happen with war. And what I really hope we see, and I'm just an old peacenik, I suppose, is I just want to see the way we respond to each other change. Because as I've always made the case, we are in this together, and we rise together, and we fall together. Whether you're Republican or conservative, whether you're a progressive or regressive, whether you're a democratic socialist like myself, or you're absolutely ignorant that anything is going on anywhere in your country ever, you're affected just the same as the rest of us are. And with that, I want to wish everybody I hope your Christmas was great. Hope it was merry. And I want to welcome everybody to 2014. We will be with you next year. Happy New Year. And yeah, that's my word. I want to thank you for your support over this last year. I want to thank my producer, Kevin. I want to thank my former co-host, Angela, who we will get on the mic sometime later this year. And to Open Sky Radio, whatever happens with you gentlemen, we look forward to going down that road with you, to going on that journey with you. And this show, in one form or another, is going to keep on keeping on. We are the fire you can't put out. and we will prevail. I'll see you next year, everybody. Good day.